I had times where, I did all types of stuff like consulting. I worked with brands. I created a course. Like I did different things and to kind of see like what I enjoyed and what I liked to do. And so that was challenging, to keep on switching and feeling like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm flippy floppy because now I changed my bio and I'm talking about this now. If you're in the place of like, oh, I want to make this switch, just know that people get excited when you are excited. Like the moment that you show excitement, they're going to be like, oh my God, oh, cool. Like she's doing this now. It's not going to be that weird, awkward moment. Like, oh, now she wants to do this. It's not going to be like that. If you're like, you know what? I made the shift and this is what I'm going to go to, then people are going to be more likely to hold on to that and be like, oh my God, I want to support her in this shift.
What is going on, Nomads and entrepreneurs? Welcome back to another episode of the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm still your host, Daniel Falanique. I hope you're well. I hope you're healthy. I am super excited to bring you another episode. We are on a roll, guys. I mean, when I tell you we're on a roll, we really are on a roll. And this episode promises to be another exciting one. Like I said in the last episode, I told you guys that I have an awesome lineup of guests for you. And this episode promises nothing less than that. I am making good on my word. And this episode is going to be an exciting one as I dive into the exciting world of business building with your business coach, Attaliah Strubel. Now, Attaliah is a personal brand business coach and globetrotting entrepreneur. And in this episode, she opens up on a treasure trove of insights drawing from her own personal remarkable story of how she turned online business dreams into reality while balancing a nursing career, then fearlessly transitioned into remote work and life in Germany with her husband. Attaliah in this episode spills all of the tea on personal branding, social media mastery, and marketing wizardry, equipping you not only to carve out a robust online identity, but to also set and conquer all of your loftiest goals. And beyond business success, Attaliah shares a holistic journey to unlock your true potential and bask in the life that you've always envisioned. We talked everything from business to growing your personal brand online using Instagram as a driver for that. We dived into all of the nitty gritty, all of the technical details of growing on Instagram using Reels. We dived into some nuances. A lot of people think this, algorithm is one big bad giant over your shoulder, just, deciding to show or not to show your content to people. And how you can break out of that thinking of, this social media platform wanting to throttle your views and not wanting to promote your content and just creating something that really resonates with you and will ultimately resonate with your viewers. We also talked about business, how you can work with her and how she has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs break through that barrier of starting their online business and now having thriving online businesses. So this is going to be a very insightful episode for you. I want to implore you to listen to the very end because all of the good stuff is in the middle of this episode itself. So don't click away too early. And also, I will leave the link to Attaliah Strubel's website. All of the resources that we talked about in this episode will be in the show notes if you want to check them out. And you can find Attaliah on Instagram at Attaliah Strubel. And you can also go on the website at www.attaliahstrubel.com/resources to see all of the ways through which you can work with her. So this episode is going to be packed full of nuggets and tips and strategies. So grab your notepads and grab your favorite beverage. Let us dive into the world of social media and business building and digital nomading with Attaliah Strubel. With that said, I want to welcome you again to this episode. And also, if you have not subscribed wherever you get it from, if that's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, this is the best time to do so. I really and truly appreciate it. And also, if you found any value at all in this episode, be sure to leave a review. Let me know what you think, because I said earlier, and I want to say it again, that I want to make this podcast a go-to resource for digital nomads and remote working entrepreneurs who are trying to build businesses on the road. On how to do that, I talk to people who have already done so. So leave a review, let me know what you think, and that really helps in discoverability as well. So thank you as you do that. And without further ado, let's dive right into this episode with Attaliah Strubel. But before I do that, you know what we do around here. We have to cue the intro. And I will talk to you on the other side of this conversation. Thanks for listening. Let's dive right into it. Welcome to Nomad Entrepreneur, the podcast for digital nomads and remote working entrepreneurs who are living life on their own terms. I'm your host and fellow nomad, Daniel Falunikbe, and I'm excited to bring you conversations with inspiring individuals who are building businesses from anywhere in the world. Each episode will dive into their stories, tips, and strategies for creating a successful and fulfilling location-independent lifestyles. So grab your headphones, kick back, and join me as I explore the freedom and adventure of the nomadic life. Let's get started. So welcome to the podcast, Attaliah. Nice to finally see you. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You seem really energized where you are right now. Where are you joining from? Set the scene for me.
In Germany, it is actually the end of my day. And so
Ooh.
it's 6 p.m. here. So it's the end of the day. But I guess
Oh.
when I get, you get on the mic and you're like, energy.
Of course. I mean, I know that, in fact, I was just in Albania for the last 2.5 months. So I was on the same time zone actually. But my sleep schedule got really messed up. So I'm just really glad that I'm back in the US. So now I am normalized. I get normal hours of sleep and everything seems to be going and working well for me right now. So tell me about your situation right now. You're in Germany, but where are you originally from?
I am originally from Zimbabwe,
Ooh.
but I grew up in the US. So we migrated to the US when I was 4 years old. And so I always say, like, I'm from the US because, it's
Uh-huh.
just easier because it's like long story, right?
Right.
And I actually met my husband in Thailand and meeting him there, he's German. And 3 years
Ah.
ago, we moved here to Germany.
Wow, interesting. I mean, I could never have guessed that you were originally from Zimbabwe because I'm from Nigeria myself. So when I was, going through your social media, it was just so, it just didn't stand out to me. And you also mentioned that you met your husband in Germany. Did you find travel? I mean, in Thailand, did you find travel love in Thailand? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened. And it's like one of those things where you're like, how did this happen? How did I get here? And we actually met each other and knew each other for like 2 hours. We went bar hopping and then
Ooh.
we exchanged information, and then like he left the island and we continued our vacationing, but then we just stayed in contact. And
Oh, wow.
after that, 11 months later, we got married.
11 months. I mean, now you got people listening thinking, well, maybe I can do the same because a lot of people listen here. Obviously, people travel and we come across people every day, from, bar hopping to couch surfing to whatever. And, you spark this thing in a few hours, you're already thinking, ooh, maybe I found my travel love. But, most of the time it just never happens to be that way. But that's okay. I mean, congratulations. You found your person, and I'm really happy for you. That's really good.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a weird situation. I never thought that I would be here, like get married and like I don't know, married to him, like someone I
Yeah.
met in Thailand. It's weird.
I know. So what was your, I mean, of course, people who decide to do this digital nomad thing initially, they do it to, oh, I wouldn't say most people. I would say, some people at least that I've come across on the internet, they do that to, quote unquote, go find themselves, or just, a lot of people have accused nomads of, running away from something. just trying to disconnect from real life. I'm using here quotes now. What was your reason for embarking on that life originally? I'm curious.
So actually, it's because my husband didn't like the United States. Um,
Okay.
so it wasn't this thing. I did have this pull like 4 years ago to kind of be like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm meant to do more. At that time, I was working as a bedside registered nurse in the
Mm,
NICU, and I was working 60-hour weeks and, hustling. And we had a
wow.
really great life. We had the house, we traveled all the time, and we were able to still travel and do stuff. And that lifestyle was just too fast for him.
Hmm.
And now I understand it now that we live here in Germany. It's more of a
Right.
slower life. And I think
Exactly.
that's why, as a digital nomad, we want to, live that slower life and decide to ourselves, like, you know what, I want to spend a week away, or I want to spend 2 weeks
Mm,
away. And you don't feel like the pressures of daily life, or feel like
right.
you have to go back to what's normal,
Hmm.
because honestly, this is my normal. Like, I'm able to leave and go anywhere at any time.
That's awesome, and I relate so much to that because I started, traveling almost nonstop in 2021, almost 2.5 years, almost 3 years at this point. And I tell people that the more or the longer I stay out of the U.S., the harder it gets for me to reintegrate myself because I spent a lot of time in Latin America, a lot of time in Europe, and it's just a different pace of life. I grew up in Nigeria. Of course, I moved to the U.S. and when I was a full blown adult when I did, and it, now not leaving the U.S. for a long time makes me appreciate what I had, back home when I was back in Nigeria. When I would, just sit around and with my family and just talk and would just like go about our days, normal pace of life. And being back now, I tell people every single time I'm back, it feels like I'm getting suffocated. Like I'm looking at everybody, and it's just like this huge reverse culture shock, going on. And oops, oh, can you hear me? Oh, okay. This huge reverse culture shock, and it's just something that I just can't relate to anymore. But you're in Germany now. You said you used to work in as a nurse. So when did that transition start from being a nurse? I mean, you must have spent a lot of time in school for that, and now you're not a nurse anymore, to say the least. You're an entrepreneur. When did that transition start for you, and what made you think that you wanted to explore something different?
So it started for me in December of 2019. My husband and I actually came here to Germany in Heidelberg, and we went to the Christmas markets, which is the thing to do during that
Mm-hmm.
time. And that is when he told me, like, you know what, like, what would you want to live here? And that night I stayed up on the
Hmm.
computer, like searching on my phone in bed while he was snoring next to me, like how to make money online.
Wow.
And people had always talked about blogging, and my friends had always said, your love story, and you're always going somewhere, like, you should share it, you should start stuff on Instagram. And so I was like, you know what, why not try it? Like, why not
Hmm.
decide to go for it and just do it? And so I built up my website. I launched my business in February of 2020, and we all know then the pandemic happened. There was no
Right.
travel blogging that I was going to do. And so I shifted, and I kind of focused more on strategy and growth on Instagram, and how I could reach more people. And in that process, I fell in love with marketing. And
Hmm.
I fell in love with understanding the algorithm, and understanding
Wow.
what makes somebody buy something, or what makes somebody come listen to a podcast, what makes this, and
Hmm.
understanding like humans and sales and psychology and all of that. And so from there, I shifted into social media management. And then the following year in January, I resigned from my job.
Oh wow, it was that fast. I mean, you must have been making bank.
Honestly, we live here and we're renovating our home, and it was something where I was making probably $3,000 a month for my online business.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like if I I had a consistent client. It's a multi-million dollar business that hired me as social media management as
Hmm.
a freelancer. And I was like, okay, this is stable. Like I'm able to do this stable. And if I have this, then I can add on other things to make more money. And I took a chance on myself and I said, you know what? Like I could either go back or I can just try. And I
Right.
tried and now I'm here and I'm making consistent 10K months. And so it's just been a
Wow.
journey.
That's that's such an interesting story, and I hear this all too often. And I mean, obviously, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are on the same path. And believe me when I say that, I mean, just now you said you hear you making 10K consistently every month, and a lot of people look at this and be like, you know what? Maybe if I also start doing Instagram, maybe I'll make 10K months, before January. I You make it sound all too easy. I'm guessing, or maybe not, it was easy. But if it's not, talk to me about some of the challenges that you faced. I mean, what were I mean, the initial days as an entrepreneur myself, I know about all the self doubt and just having those moments where you think everything's just going to crash and burn. Did you have those moments? And if that's the case, how did you deal with it? If you had those moments, maybe you didn't, but talk to me about it.
I know I'm like, it is not just seamless or easy, or it's like I'm like, my story is something because I took the chance on myself, one,
Hmm.
which that's something that everyone should do. But at the same time, I was very strategic on how I went about the journey. And the challenges that came up was really understanding like what it is I wanted to do because
Hmm.
I got in and I was like, oh, like I want to figure out how to make money online. Right. And so the challenge was I had times where, I did all types of stuff like consulting.
Hmm.
I worked with brands. I created a course. Like I did different things and to kind of see like what I enjoyed and what I
Hmm.
liked to do. And so that was challenging, to keep on switching and feeling
Right.
like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm flippy floppy because now I changed my
Exactly.
bio and I'm talking about this now. And
Right.
if you're in the place of like, oh, I want to make this switch, just know that people get excited when you are excited. Like the
Hmm.
moment that you show excitement, they're going to be like, oh my God, oh, cool. Like she's doing this now. It's not going to be that
Wow.
weird, awkward moment. Like, oh, somebody's now she wants to do this. It's not going to be like
Hmm.
that. If you're like, you know what, I made the shift and this
Hmm.
is what I'm going to go to, then people are going to be more likely to hold on to that and be like, oh my God, I want to support her in this shift. Um,
Right.
and as scaling, like you 10K months, I think online too, there's a lot of salesy people who
Oh, everywhere.
have, everywhere. We're all salesy. Um, and they sell you this dream. And one thing I always tell my clients is I can help you make more money in your business, but you have to do the work.
Hmm.
I'm not selling it as, oh, I just literally sat and then I made a couple of videos online and then posted them and then people reached out to me and I made money. That
Hmm.
is some people's story. But
Absolutely.
you have to position yourself for what you want. And from the beginning, I knew I wanted to create that multiple streams of income. And while I was creating that multiple streams of income, I also knew that I needed to invest in somebody who was doing what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And the challenge I faced there is scammers. I I
I have
actually
stories for days.
right? I'm like, wow, it was crazy. But I actually paid someone $5,000 for 4 calls.
Oof.
And it's like a huge blogger, like known in the world. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm going to go into this and then learn from them. And
Wow.
in quote unquote learning, I learned that people can be really good at selling, but
Wow.
that doesn't mean they're good at coaching.
Hmm.
And you have to really take a look at who you're wanting to hire and you have to see like, are they talking about their clients and their client successes or are they just talking about themselves? Because
Hmm.
there are people who know how to be successful for themselves, but they don't know how to apply that to somebody else.
Wow, that's really profound. And I'm going to talk about. I have also a personal experience of hiring someone. I actually paid about $4,000 for a consultant call and just walkthroughs and whatnot, and it just straight up never showed up. But that we can talk about. We can talk about that later. But you, but you, I can see your face right now. The listeners might not see it, but it's like wide. Um, you talked about getting excited because I I found myself, I mean, in my early days in this situation a lot where you are still out there trying different things, right? You think this is going to work, then it doesn't work out, then you found something else. And there's this term for it, especially in this online marketing space. It's called the shiny object syndrome, when you're just bouncing from thing to thing but nothing seems to be working. And I think it's an important aspect, or it's an important learning that we need to do as beginners, especially when someone is just starting out in this space trying to, build something online. Talk to me about that feeling of not being, say, good enough, or having this voices in your head telling you, "Oh, people might think I'm flaky, or I'm not as grounded in this thing as I, used to be." There's this thing that goes around in your head, this like whole thing of, "Oh man, what are people going to say?" This and that, and it all stems back to, or is attached to shiny object syndrome. So, talk me through this whole how you deal with this old thing of shiny object syndrome, dealing with self-doubt, and dealing with this voices in your head telling you all of these things, and how you dealt with it, particularly during this periods in your life.
hmm So with shiny object syndrome, we all get it. And with that, I think there's a difference between trying different ways to grow your business and having
Hmm.
shiny object syndrome. And so most of the time when people do have shiny object syndrome, they're chasing the money. They're not chasing
Hmm.
their why, they're chasing the result. They want that instant gratification, that instant of like, oh my gosh, like now I know this works. Like you post
Hmm.
something and now you're getting thousands of followers, right? And if you don't get the thousands of followers, then it's like, I don't need to be on Instagram. Instagram is stupid. Let me go to
Right.
TikTok. More people are on. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. It's because you're jumping from place to place and your content is different and you get that different traction from each person.
Hmm.
And so, in my experience, when I was doing the shifts, and I do have clients who have this problem, but when I was making that shift of like, okay, now I'm moving to this, I would go back and evaluate. Like, am
Hmm.
I being flaky? Am I thinking that, like, am I not pursuing this, what I was doing, because it's not working? Or is it because I'm not getting that instant result, or I'm not getting that gratification? And then the third thing I always ask myself is like, okay, now that I'm switching to this, is the switch going to make me happy, or am I going to be stuck in the tombs, right? Because
Hmm.
sometimes there are things, all of the people that are online that are doing different things, like they work. Email marketing works. Social media marketing
Absolutely.
works. It all works, but I always tell my clients 90 days. Give yourself
Hmm.
90 days to try something. If
Wow.
you're getting on Instagram and you're posting and you're not seeing traction, I want you to post consistently for 90 days. I
90
want you to
days.
say every single, during this time, 3 to 5 times a week, I'm going to post for 90 days. I'm going to do email marketing for 90 days, whatever it is, give it 90
Right.
days because you're not really going to see the results for like 6 months. Right. The
Right.
work that you do now, you're going to really see them in 6 months. But if you can't
Hmm.
stick to something for 90 days, you're always going to feel like, oh, so and so sold me, but this
Right.
isn't working.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I mean, on my YouTube channel, I have two YouTube channels, one where I talk about my travels, and the other where I just, talk just marketing. And it's much smaller because not many people are interested in, learning about marketing, obviously. But you mentioned, the 90-day rule, and that's something that I totally 100% agree with. I tell people, want to get into content, start an online business, build an email list, whatever it is that you're trying to do, give it 90 days. at the very minimum. And if after 90 days something isn't working, then we can come back and talk. But if you haven't done it for 90 days and you're coming back to me and saying, "Oh, I mean, YouTube is dumb," well, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Also, I also want to get into, because you mentioned something really important about finding someone who is already doing what you want to do, or at where you want to be, which I noted here as finding a mentor. And we've both have experiences with people who, like you've rightly said, they're not naturally scammers, or they've done that said thing for themselves. They've grown from 0 to 100,000 followers in 6 weeks, or whatever the situation might be, and they've went from 0 to 20K per month in 90 days, whatever that is. They've done that thing. But you see that and you're like, "Oh, I want that." But then you invest into that thing, into that person, and they end up not being who they say they are, or in that context, not being able to transfer that knowledge to you. My thing, or my question to you: how do you sniff out the good mentors from the shady ones? And how do you know exactly what a person is worth? Like, what should I invest in this person, or how much should I invest in myself, if we had to rephrase that question?
I would say to sniff out whether or not you should hire somebody is you want to watch them. So like
Hmm.
after I spent money and it did not work out, I was like, no, I'm going to watch somebody for 3 months. I'm going to watch
Hmm.
them and see like how are they posting? How are they showing up online? If they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I'm making 50K a month, but they're spending every single day, they're online, they're on the weekends, they're doing that,"
Hmm.
and I don't want that. So that's not somebody that I'm interested in. I want somebody to teach me. So think about how they're showing up and how
Hmm.
they're running their business, because the way that they're showing up and they're running their business is likely how they're going to be teaching you how to run your
Hmm.
business. So if you're somebody that hates Instagram, don't hire somebody who's like all about Instagram and that's the one way they market themselves. You
Right.
want to think about what is it that I want, and before you, because there's people that are really great at sales, before you go and look up a certain hashtag or like whatever to find somebody, I would suggest to sit down and write what you want your business to look like.
Hmm.
Because what happens if you go into Instagram and you type in business coach, you're going to see a bunch of coaches doing a different thing. And some people just have that attraction. And you're like, "Oh my God, I'm attracted to that person." And then now you start to build your business off of that person's, the way they have their business.
Hmm.
But in the end, you never thought about, "Oh, actually, I want my business to look like this." And
Hmm.
so I want you to sit down and write down, what do you want your business to look like? And like thinking every little thing, like how many times are you wanting to post? Like how much are you wanting to make? And then from there, use that list to find that person for you. And
Hmm.
remember, that person is not a one all be all. You're going to have to invest multiple times. Like if you're like, "Oh, I want a business that runs on systems," you might have to invest in somebody that does systems and
Right.
then invest somebody that does
Absolutely.
Instagram, right? But you have to
Right.
prioritize and think to yourself, where am I at? And the person that you're hiring you is taking you to the next step. They are not completing you. Do not
Hmm.
hire somebody because you feel they're going to change your life, because you're the only person that can change your life. You're going to be the one
Wow.
that has to put in the work, and you're going to be the one that has to do all of the things in order for you to move forward. And because of that, as you think about how much is it worth, like how much should I pay somebody? And I remember my first course, my husband actually bought it for me because I was like, I was looking at it and I was like, "I don't know, like, should I do it? Whatever, whatever." And then he was like, "No, honey, do it, do it." And then he like logged on, he got me the course, right? And
Wow.
it was $297. And I was like, okay, like I got the course and I started working on it. And then the next thing I wanted to go was a weekend retreat. And it was like a weekend thing. And I was, like it was like something that I felt
Hmm.
like I could be surrounded by those people and like
Right.
really take off. And so With the weekend retreat, it was $5,000. And that was just
Oof.
to attend the retreat. That was not including the flights, that wasn't including
Wow.
anything. And so it was like, it was a lot of money. And my
Right.
instant thing was like, oh no, like we can't do this. Like my business doesn't make any money yet. Like I don't want to do this. Like I only make money here and there. Like I don't want to invest $5,000. And my husband said to me, Atalia, if you do this, you're going to make the money back because I
Wow.
know you're going to put in that work and you're going to learn. You're going to go there and you're going to learn that information and you're going to come home and put in the work. So when
Hmm.
you are hiring somebody and they teach you, you can look at modules all day. You can listen to things, right? Listen to podcasts. You can do all of that.
Right.
But what matters is what you're doing afterwards. After you
Hmm.
listen to that podcast, are you saying, oh, okay, I listened to this Reels podcast. Let me apply it. You need to
Hmm.
apply it. And that is where you decide, like, okay, in my application of what this person is teaching me, is it going to make me $5,000?
Hmm.
In my application of this course, what it's going to bring me, is it going to make me $297?
Interesting. I mean, we can go into sort of like a relationship segment on its own with, some things that that you've, talked about there. But, let's stick with business here for a second. And, you know, you mentioned a lot of, really important things. Hire someone who, the person you hire is not going to complete you. They only take you to the next step, and you have to keep reinvesting yourself. The more growth you want, the bigger the investment you have to, you're gonna have to do. And you talked about a lot of things. And we're gonna go into it now. Talking about driving people to, or getting attention, which is sort of like, creating content, putting yourself out there and whatnot. And I know that Instagram has been a main driver, or a huge driver in your business. And a lot of people, including myself, I find Instagram really like tedious. Like, what is this? How do people even make this thing work? I've been on Instagram for years, but I've never really put in the effort until recently. And I see that people notice, people are looking. You just have to put yourself out there more. And that's my biggest takeaway. But talk to me about Instagram as a platform, how you've used the platform to drive growth in your business, and some of the little intricacies that goes behind the scenes that people may not necessarily be aware of.
So Instagram is, I feel like Instagram, it's love hate, right? Everyone's always worried
It
about the
truly is.
algorithm. That's what it is. Like you have this big algorithm man on your shoulder who's determining where your content
Hmm.
goes. And one thing, actually in the last 3 months that I've really gone in and applied, and it's helped me grow 3,000 followers the last 3 months, is the
Wow.
fact of I'm not posting my content for Instagram. I
Hmm.
know what works. So, like, if you're somebody that's wanting to grow, something that really works right now, we all know is Instagram Reels. And you want to
Hmm.
keep them short. You want to have the information right there. And then you can lead them to where your offer through your call to action, or lead them to your YouTube through your call to action. And kind of the reels are like clickbaity, the ones where it's like,
Right.
oh, here's this and this, and then, oh, listen to the rest of the YouTube video, right?
Uh-huh.
Like that type of thing. It works, honestly. It does have the conversion and it works. But one thing that I started doing was posting things that I wanted to post. Like I
Hmm.
wanted to post, and I wanted my ideal client to understand my point of view. So instead of posting things like 3 ways to blah, 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 right?
Right.
Instead of posting like that, posting your thoughts and posting
Hmm.
like, hey, like I didn't really understand the value of X until I started doing
Wow.
Y. Right. Then
Hmm.
somebody sees it more as an experience and they're like, oh, like
Hmm.
she thinks like me. Oh, I get that.
Right.
She has the same mindset as me.
Huh.
And they connect with you in that way instead of connecting with you because of your tips, because everyone's out
Right.
there giving tips.
It's just sort of like your sorry to cut you off here. It's just like you're voicing other people's thoughts, pretty much.
Yes. Yes. So I started
Interesting.
really honing in on that and thinking about what type of thoughts were people have. Like I had like this video where I talked about the fact that I left my multi six figure job to start working for myself. And then I said, because I can work out, like I can work out on a random Thursday. And it
Hmm.
was a voiceover with my voice in the back. And it's like, that's the thing. Other people who are working that multi six figure job is
Right.
like, oh, okay, like I want to be able to work out during the day. Like I want
Mm-hmm.
that freedom. And so thinking about what your ideal client wants, and when you know what your ideal client wants, then you're able to create content more seamlessly.
Hmm.
It comes easier because it's like,
Right.
oh, I know like this. And also not forcing content. You can tell when something is forced. Like we
Right.
can all feel the energy of force. Like when you don't feel like showing up, we can feel it. We can be like, oh man, like she just
Absolutely.
she just came in today.
Right.
Um, and because of that, what I always do is when you have, like, as content creators, we all have that time where, like, our brain is on fire and you're feeling like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this idea and this idea. Oh, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should do this. And when I get in that moment, I'm like, let me sit down and I write out all of the different
Hmm.
ideas I'm having. And no idea is getting left off my paper. Every
Wow.
single idea is going to be on the paper. And then you're going to utilize that as your content.
Hmm.
And in utilizing that as your content, right? You understanding just really like the strategy for Instagram. Hashtags aren't dead.
Right.
Hashtags are definitely alive.
Wow.
You want to use 7 hashtags for Instagram Reels. I have been using the same hashtags for the last 3 months. Before, it was actually like taboo to utilize the same hashtags and they would flag your account kind of.
Okay.
But now it's like good. And then with your Instagram stories, that is a place that you want to show up, be yourself, showcase your
Hmm.
day and what you are doing, no matter what type of business you have. Showing the behind the scenes of your life allows somebody to connect with you, right? They
Hmm.
connect with you on a deeper level. And
Right.
I'm telling you the simplest things of like, oh, do you like coffee or do you like tea? Right? You are
Okay.
asking them like, oh, do you like coffee or do you like tea? And then going
Or
in
do you
and
like
being
pineapple on your pizza?
unpopular opinion. I actually had a post about that.
Really?
Yes. And it did really well because people want to know like your opinion
Right.
and like what you like. And social media is social. So once somebody goes on there and votes and says like, "Oh, I like tea," you can decide I'm going to go with the tea people today or I'm going to go with the coffee people, and you're going to go in
Hmm.
there and you're going to make connections, and not a salesy connection, like
Right.
something that's literally like, "Yep, I can't understand the coffee people." Like I'm right there with you. I'm a tea girl, right? And it's just you showing that you're a real person.
Right.
It's not, sometimes there's those people that you follow and you just watch them. Like you're just
Mm-hmm.
watching them all day and
Right. Absolutely.
there's no interaction. And
Yep.
if you want to increase your sales with Instagram, you need to amp up the connection. You need to amp up
Hmm.
how you communicate. You need to, as you're doing stories, like as I said, stories behind the scenes, and post is really educational. Like if you have posts, you can
Okay.
do educational, talk about the authority that you have, switch it up, talk about random things that are happening in your life or a life
Hmm.
update, like what's happening here. And then within Instagram Reels, really you want to switch it up with Instagram Reels. I will say that selling on Instagram Reels is different. It's a different strategy to sell on there.
Okay.
Your caption is what is really going to sell for you rather than
Hmm.
selling on your feed.
On
If
your
you want
feed.
to utilize Instagram Reels like a lead magnet, you want to take that Instagram reel, create it, and be like, here's my free offer, and take them through something free. And then you get them to your email marketing. And then that's how you can really convert your clients.
I mean, this is like a crash course on Instagram Reels and Instagram funnels and whatnot. And I want to really like dive into some of the things that you talked about. Of course, being a real person is a huge aspect of that. I think it's really big on what you said just now. But I also have some personal questions as well, which I think, I think I would be voicing my audience's thoughts if I ask you these questions. And the first question is, one, does your location, like where you are in the world, does that affect where your reels are going to be shown? Because I've seen that on TikTok, for example. I think the algorithm prioritizes, people around you. Does that happen for Instagram Reels as well? Because I've seen that. I mean, so I made a few reels, right? A few months ago, I made a lot of reels. I got a lot of feedback. They were really good, but they weren't getting like the kind of people I was expecting them to be shown to, because I was in Albania and I was getting a lot of people from Greece, from Albania, from all these people who would not typically buy from me, right? How does that really work on the algorithm side of who your reel gets shown to?
So the Instagram algorithm is changing to be similar like the TikTok algorithm. So it is
Okay.
posting people that are local to you. One way to make sure that you get the people, like as you're talking about your travels, right? You
Mm-hmm.
want to mix up your hashtags. Your hashtags is what going to help you to get that reach of your ideal clients. So thinking
Okay.
about what does your ideal client look up. So for example, if I had a post, I was in Greece, right? And I hashtagged Mykonos Greece, but then I also hashtag passive income tips or
Mm-hmm.
content creator lifestyle or digital nomad, because then it's going to hit that thing. It'll take you to the location, right? But then it's going to use those keywords, but also they utilize the keywords that you put in the caption. So if
Oh,
in the caption all you talked about was Albania, then yes, that's all they're going to put out, because that's what they're doing, because SEO is moving towards Instagram. And
right.
so they want to be more SEO. And so when you are writing something, you also want to make sure that your caption aligns. And what
Mm.
some people are doing in order to, I've seen some influencers doing it where they just like put different words at the bottom, right? Like where they're like mom blogger Italy, and instead of
I've seen
hashtags they just
those a
put the
lot
words. Yeah.
recently.
Yes. So that's what people are doing, but I think it's just better to put it in your caption and your wording rather than putting it at the bottom. Um,
Right.
I have not tried to put it at the bottom because I just don't think the strategy would work, but it
Mm.
has me interested.
Interesting. So like I told you, I'm also a content creator. I mean, YouTube is really where I make a lot of my content about marketing and whatnot. And a lot of people who I talk to, a lot of people who listen to my content, they are people who are also looking to create passive income streams and whatnot through, selling digital products. And I know that's something that do a lot of. And in those early days, you're creating content with some people with no intention or no strategy behind the content that they create. I tell people that if you want to go into this, be strategic about it from day one. If you want to sell digital products, you have to keep that in mind, make content with that in mind. But a lot of people still have a lot of, I would say, difficulty trying to align the content they post in the early days to their end goal. At what point did you realize that, what, I know enough about my craft to be able to teach other people or have the confidence to make that into a data product that you feel might be valuable to people? Because I feel like that's a big problem that a lot of people face, and it ties down to what we spoke earlier about, self-doubt and self-questioning about, am I good enough? Am I even, what do I know to sell something to people? How do you overcome those thoughts and hurdle in the initial stages?
So my first course was a Reels course, and Reels came out like October 2020, I think.
Mm.
And I sold my course Black Friday or something. Oh, yeah, Black Friday. And prior to then, what I would do is create a free offer and provide that free offer and then see what type of questions somebody asks you or if you get questions. So the reason that I even did the Reels freebie was because people were asking me about Reels. They were seeing me
Hmm.
post Reels, they were seeing me getting this reach, they were seeing me grow, and they started asking me questions. And so then I utilized those questions to create a free offer. And then
Hmm.
once I got those questions, I realized there was a lot of different things that I could teach about that. And
Hmm.
so that goes back to, the back and forth and having those conversations.
Right.
And with the doubt, when you're starting, a digital product, we all get that, oh my God, I'm going to put this offer out here and no one's going to buy it, right? I'm going to put this
Right.
out and no one's going to buy it, or people are going to
Yes.
get it and they feel like it's useless, right? You
Right.
want to really identify like what it is that you're selling, because there are people out there selling these digital products. And I mean,
Hmm.
I bought something the other day about ClickUp and the sales page was great, but when I got the product it was like, okay, like I
Yeah.
didn't really need to pay for this.
Right.
But it is what it is. I have the product. But when you are creating and you're thinking about it, do a beta. Have a group of people that you give them a discounted rate in exchange to get their feedback. And
Hmm.
so that you can get that feedback. So that's either going to boost your confidence or let you know that you need to improve your course. And as you're working through that, obviously mindset is huge. And if
Right.
you're in on the entrepreneurial journey, you want to invest that time. One thing for me this year in 2023, I am solely focusing on only getting offers for mindset and really
Hmm.
working on that, because most of the time that feeling, the subconscious feeling of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not this, it stems
Right.
from something. And you
Hmm.
want to look at what it stems from. I think in the entrepreneurial or internet space, everyone, I guess, kind of assumes, like, you just kind of are like, oh, everyone gets imposter syndrome, and like it's
Right.
everything's imposter syndrome. And it's like, sometimes it's not imposter syndrome. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's you feel that thing in your gut because your offer is not good enough. And
Hmm.
that is fine because you can always improve it, but you don't know how to improve it unless you get that group of people where you can get that feedback. And also, once people start buying your course, like, nothing annoys me more than buying a course and then the person never checks on me, like never sends out like an email to be like, how was the
Hmm.
course? Like, give me feedback, like this, like, no, you want to get that feedback consistently, because at the end of the day, that feedback is also going to help you once you
Right.
do make it evergreen. Now you have testimonials and you have all these things.
And yeah, that's really. I mean, you mentioned. I mean, God damn, you are dropping so much knowledge. Even in myself, I mean, I'm learning so much here. And you mentioned something earlier that I just want to reiterate again, which is when you are just starting out, like getting that initial feedback, like getting feedback from people, like putting stuff out there and just feeling the waters and just like seeing how people react to it, I think is going to make all of the difference. And there's something else I want to get into. As you were talking about that, it just popped into my mind. And I think I mean, I watched a lot of your content over the last couple of days, and I found, I mean, you've been doing this a while, so you kind of know what you're doing at this point. But I still speak to a lot of people, and this is going to blow your mind. I mean, maybe it doesn't blow your mind, but maybe you know this. A lot of people who I feel have so much to offer, like they know so much about their business. Maybe they don't even have an online footprint at all. And I'm telling them, like, dude, or like, you can do so much more. Like, you can impact more lives, you can make so much more money by just getting yourself online and just putting yourself online. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. Oh no, I don't like my voice on camera, or I don't like to watch myself back, or whatever the excuse may be. And I call this the content creator dilemma, because a lot of people have this, cringe towards, like, oh, you are also a content creator. I was at this couch surfing event a few days ago before I jumped on my flight back to the US, and a lot of people were asking, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a marketer, but I also do YouTube content." "Oh, you also do YouTube? You also a content creator?" I'm like, "Yeah." So, I mean, what does that mean? Well, everybody does YouTube these days. I'm like, okay, but not everybody does it like me. So, what do you say to those people who are kind of averse to being a quote unquote content creator? Because I think there's a lot of opportunity in the online space and being a quote unquote content creator. What do you say to those people?
It's really funny. My friend has a course and she got on to Instagram and was like, Instagram, it's about my course. Like, that's it. Like, I'm not a content creator. And she'd always be like, I'm not an influencer. And she would
Right.
constantly tell me that. And I'm like, you know what? Being an influencer, like, majority of these influencers, they're very smart. Like, they
Yeah.
built businesses where they have multiple streams of income. So even as a marketer or you're a business coach, you can work with brands. Like, you
Hmm.
do the content creation, you understand your ideal client, you understand what makes them buy. So if there's something that you use for your YouTube, you can easily go pitch a company and be like, "Hey, I've been using this for X amount of time. I always talk about it. People love your product. I would love to work with you." And that
Hmm.
allows you to be in that space. And when you have that dilemma, I always say, like, don't invite people that don't really want to be there, because when once they
Hmm.
get on Instagram or they get on and they don't really want to be there, then it's only the negative that they talk about, right? They're
Right.
like, oh my God, I posted and nobody's watching my content. It's like, okay, girl, like, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. So I'm not in the business of convincing people to be on Instagram,
Right.
but content creation is a skill, and it's a skill that is created over time, and you get better and better and better and better. And that's why some people like me, I started on Instagram posting selfies, right? Posting selfies in
Hmm.
my car, knew nothing about Instagram, and here I am 3 years later making full-time income from there. So it's really about content, like releasing that feeling of a content creator is supposed to look a certain way, or they're supposed to say certain things like, hey, just
Right.
hopping on, like it. Everyone doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the same. You can be a different type of content creator, and you can bring your skills into the platform and show something else, because we're all tired of seeing the same thing, right? We want to see
Absolutely.
something different. So
Right.
if you have that different type of content and you have a different way of sharing your story, it just is that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. And one analogy that I, say to people is you want to learn something. Say you want to learn how to potty train your child. You go to the bookstore. There's probably 100 books in that bookstore talking about potty training for kids, but there's 100 different authors as well. I mean, the fact that someone wrote about potty training does not mean that another person cannot write about it. The methods, the techniques is what differ from person to person, their delivery and how they, how they present themselves. So you don't necessarily have to be Italia. You can, just be Jane, or just be John. Well, I mean, whoever you are. And I was just talking to someone prior to this podcast on the call, like, your unique experiences are what really matters. That's what you are selling. That's what you are bringing to the people, not necessarily what you have to say, because 100 different people have probably talked about the same things. Now, let's move on to. It's going to tie back to what we talked about. Getting a mentor, finding someone who is where you want to be. A lot of people are listening right now. They're thinking, they probably find you interesting as I do, and they're thinking, what who is she, what does she do, and how do you help people? I know you have different types of ways through which you help people. Can you talk about some of them, so that anyone who wants to find you can easily do that?
Yes, of course. So if you're somebody that's like, okay, I ain't trying to pay nothing, I want to just have free content. I have a blog, www.attaliastrubel.com. And then I have a podcast. It's called Socially Paid Podcast. And I have weekly episodes, and I'm actually going to go into guest episodes in the fall. And there's just a lot of, I'm not a gatekeeper, like you can probably tell from this episode. I'm not a gatekeeper. I have no time for
Yeah, I can
gatekeeping.
tell.
I will tell you all I can tell you, because at the end of the day, you're going to hire me because you want me to take a look at your business, and
Right.
not because, this one tip is not going to take my whole entire business. And I think that's how some
Very
people
true.
think. If you are struggling with monetizing your content, or you're struggling with the content creation process, I have a membership called Socially Paid Suite. And inside the suite, I give you templates, you get weekly prompts, we have monthly calls, and then you also get 2 trainings on different things with inside of business to not only streamline your business, but also increase your income online. And then I have a signature program called the Profitable Creator. This is a program, 6 months. It's really to help you get to that consistent income. So, in the program, we'll be launching your products together and really working through your strategy and creating your business. I have anyone from, like, I'm just starting, to people who are scaling their business inside of
Hmm.
there. And then I also do one on one coaching, Voxer coaching. So, there's multiple different ways that you can work with me.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think a lot of people can, benefit from that. So if you're listening, you're just getting your feet wet in content creation. You want to create, I mean, I don't, I want to shy away from saying the word passive, but if you want to create an income stream that's gonna, last a while, doing what you truly love, travel, whatever it is for you, whatever what you truly love means for you. Could be spending time with family, travel, which is how I love to spend my time. Check out Attaliah Strubel is your Instagram, I believe. I'll leave everything down in the show notes, the website, or you can reach out to her. She has such an interesting Instagram profile. I've been doing a lot of digging through myself. Everything is going to be in the show notes. And, talk to me a little bit about, your travel. You've been, obviously you've done a little bit of that. You plan to do any more of that, in the coming future?
I actually just booked a last minute trip to Girona, Spain. I had never heard
Ooh.
of it. My husband and I literally went online and we were like, where's the cheapest place we can go, like, last minute? And we found it, and then we saw pictures. It's called Tosa de Mar. And so we're going to be
Oh,
headed
wow.
there. Earlier this year, I was in Curacao. This year, I have not been traveling as much. Last year, I traveled to 10 different countries and, like,
Wow.
worked and traveled, and it was
Hmm.
so much fun. But as I said before, like, we're renovating, and now
Yeah.
it's time to enjoy the home just a little, just enough. And then we'll probably be back to jet setting in 2024.
Interesting. I mean, that's really awesome. I enjoy travel a lot. I've been here less than a week, and I'm itching to go elsewhere, which I am going to do very gladly tomorrow. And a lot of people listen to this podcast and reach out to me. I love your life, this and that, but like you said earlier, it takes a lot of self belief and just like diving in at first and not thinking about the repercussions, because if you do, you're just not going to take action whatsoever. For anyone listening right now, with from your experience and with your knowledge so far spanning many years, what would you say is the one thing that's allowed you to be successful? It could be, I don't know, just from a business owner perspective and from a mindset perspective. I mean, if you could give just one of each, I think that would be awesome.
Email marketing. Um, Email
Ooh,
marketing is huge. I love email marketing, and I talk
I
about it
wasn't
a lot.
expecting that.
Right? You weren't expecting it. It's because when you are somebody that loves to travel and you love to do your own
Hmm.
thing, systems matter. So, creating a system, and for me, it's email marketing, because it's something that runs while I sleep. Like, I make money while I sleep because I have set up a system through email marketing. And
Hmm.
from the mindset perspective, I have been doing I've actually been doing more like figuring out like human design, and I've been doing like hypnosis, and
Okay.
just really exploring yourself as a human being, because
Hmm.
you think to yourself like, oh, like, I'm scared to do this, or like, I don't like to hear my voice, and you want to explore where that comes from. like finding the root cause to things, I guess would be like my mindset thing of just like
Right.
spending time with yourself, like journaling or, listening to different people in the mindset realm so that you can kind of get more deeper understanding of yourself.
Right, right. Thank you so much. I mean, that's really insightful. And like I said, I will leave all of your information in the show notes. You can go check it out at attaliahstrubel.com, Attaliah Strubel on Instagram. Go check out our content. It's really awesome. I learned so much myself again from this conversation. I mean, 52 minutes have flown by. I didn't even know it. So finally, I just want to say, thank you so much for coming, Attaliah. I think this was supposed to happen, and I'm glad that it's happened. Hopefully, and I can bring you back in the future, talk about travel, talk about business, and, hopefully you can have more insights to share and, just spur people on to do great things like they were meant to.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel. It's been fun. It went by so quick.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. And I will talk to you again soon. I hope you enjoyed listening to that episode as much as I enjoyed discussing it with Attaliah Strubel. Again, I want to thank you for listening this far into the episode. And if you have gained anything, if you found any value at all, I want to invite you again to leave a review on this podcast. It really helps a lot, and I want to appreciate you again for listening, for coming back. If you've been here before, I want to say thank you. If this is your first time, I want to say welcome. This is the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast, that go-to resource for digital nomads and remote working entrepreneurs. And this podcast promises to be bringing you bangers and bangers every single week. Check out all the past episodes that we've done with other entrepreneurs, talking shop about how they build businesses. And if that's something you're planning to do, make sure to listen to them. If you have any inquiries, questions, comments, queries, send me an email at ifdaniel.did@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to respond to them, answer any questions that you may have. If you have any sponsorship requests, that's where to send the email to. I am open to that, and I'll be more than happy to discuss any questions that you may have regarding that. Again, thank you for listening. I will talk to you in the next episode. This is the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast. I hope you have a great week and a great month, a great life, a great afternoon, wherever you are listening from. I'm Daniel Falanique, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.